don't know if I ever saw that, but maybe I'll check it out. Anyway, okay, cool. I just got the recording going. So yeah, even if it's a smaller group today, I think that's fine.
And
Okay, cool.
Anton
Yes.
Gorenkin wants up.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, for anybody that's maybe new here, I think most of these people have been here before. If you want to participate in the discussion, feel free to raise your hand by clicking the button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll bring you up to talk. Otherwise, you can type your question in the calls Q&A text chat, which if you look at the left-hand side of your screen, it's right above the channel that we're in. So we're in Aleo Assembly. Right above that is calls Q&A. You can type, and we'll try to answer them for you. But the one thing I was going to say is, I think starting next week, we are going to take some of the feedback that we got from our Zero Knowledge Salon survey and actually try to tailor the content specifically to one of those suggestions. Just because I know specific people wanted to learn about particular topics relating to zero knowledge and Aleo. Some of them were as complicated as understanding the elliptic curves behind our architecture. And then there were some topics that were, hey, I just generally want to understand use cases better for zero knowledge. So I think there's a wide range of perspectives here, which I think is fine. But yeah, before our call next Monday, maybe later this week, we'll put out like a specific topic that we're going to cover, maybe some key points, and then that's what the discussion will be focused around. And maybe we'll even try to get some of our other researchers or other people on the Aleo team actually involved in the discussion, because I think that was something else they were trying to push for was, hey, we want to join the calls. However, we want to make sure it's worth their time instead of just having like an open discussion since they're really busy. So I just wanted to point that out. But if you didn't fill out that form and you still want to, I believe it should be pinned in calls Q&A, but let me just check. Yeah, okay. So if you go to the calls Q&A chat and you click the pin, it should be like the second one listed there. It's a ZK Salon survey link. So feel free to fill that out if you haven't. But with that being said, I think Errol logged in with his personal account. So Errol, can you talk now?
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
technical issues, but this is a temporary solution.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's fine. As long as we got your voice, I think that's perfect. Cool. Okay, so maybe I'll just go to the chat real quick because somebody asked, can you tell us a bit more about the ambassadors program? Okay. Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll just cover that really quickly. But basically, last week we had an open discussion on the ambassadors program, which I think went really well. And I see a few people on this call that were actually involved in that discussion. So right now, what we're doing is we're working on taking some of that feedback and sort of incorporating it into our initial ideas for the program. And then later this month, probably I'm really trying to push for it to be soon. So probably like next week or something like that, we're going to do like an initial launch. And the general point of the ambassadors program is to engage with all of you and people that are already in our community who are super involved to try and help us like spread brand awareness of Aleo, as well as help like educate our community and start to help us grow out our ecosystem. On that topic, we actually have 5 projects right now that we're working with to build some interesting applications on Aleo, and we're doing a few collaborative partnerships. I won't go into specifics about that because I'm not sure, what we want to announce yet and what we don't. But just so you know, there's a ton of activity, and so with that, and also with the feature bounties, as we continue to develop out more of the ecosystem, we're really going to need more participation from all of you. So that's the general purpose of it. And more specifically, I think we wanted to start with like our language specific community. So people that are based in places like different countries in Europe, like our communities in Asia, et cetera, being able to work with those folks who are already running these independent communities to help sort of act as like a bridge between like the core team at Aleo and these other groups, because we do understand that, right? Not maybe somebody's not like a fluent English speaker or things like that, and we really want to be able to accommodate for everybody. So I think that's going to be the main target area. And then the second thing, which maybe Errol can expand on as well, is we want to get people building like some sample like applications using Aleo, like very simple toy examples, nothing super complicated, just so we can help show people what are the use cases for zero knowledge, why should you be using Aleo, like how does this benefit you as a user. And again, I don't know if Errol, you want to add anything onto that because I know you've been doing some work there.
Yeah, we're just, as you said, trying to make some examples to showcase it. The thing is, there's lots of ZK snarks out there. We've got Marlin and Graph and Plonk, and there's tons of others. But for most people, the fact that these exist doesn't like which one you choose doesn't matter. It's what do you actually do with it, and this is where we want to get people's imagination going. And the best way for us to achieve that, we think, is by making some examples and showing you this is a use case for it, and this is how you could do it. From there, it should be much easier for people to build applications that do what they want on a blockchain. So that's the core aim, and we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, definitely. And also on that topic, I know Evgeny just responded to Ivan who asked that question, and he said one thing which will be really important is to involve tech heads in programming apps for Aleo. Like, definitely, totally agree with that, and we want to keep that going. We actually had one person who reached out to us. I don't know if he's in here, Mustafa. No, he's not. Usually he's on these calls, but he was actually building a quiz game, just to try to get people learning more about the technology and like zero knowledge more generally. And I believe he was trying to use like our Leo programming language to actually implement some like zero knowledge, primitives to that.
Yeah, I spoke to him earlier. He wants to build a quiz, and he wanted to make some questions about Leo. In fact, I spoke to him. It turns out he didn't even know about the Leo Playground, where you can play online website where you can just play around with Leo without having to download anything, and it's got a few examples on there. We're working on making that a bit more intuitive now and having a few more examples, so it's going to be the first place for people to go. But that's going to be the best place to see how our programming language works, and hopefully also what it's for.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, the other thing is we're revamping our website because a lot of this stuff isn't as clear, and we have a lot of interesting things for people to use. So I'll actually link that right now in the calls Q&A chat. So Leo Playground. People should definitely check this out. There's already a few examples.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say quickly on the incentivized testnet piece. Basically, people have been asking about it. So, and this is probably not what everybody wants to hear, but we're now aiming for like November 15th. And I know we've mentioned it in a couple places on the Discord, but we'll make a more widespread announcement about that. We've actually typed up an initial blog post on the initial parameters, like for the incentivized test. And I know that we had been talking about that on other community calls. That's going to be going out, I think, next week when we have our launch party in Lisbon. So also, if you're going to be in Lisbon at all, or either ETH Lisbon, LizCon, or anything like that, we're going to have people there. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you're going to be in the area. We'd love to meet you in person. We're going to have a party as part of like the ZK Hackathon. We're actually like the sponsor for like the launch party. So I think around then we're also going to put out this information on the incentivized testnet. And what does that mean for you? That means we want to be able to get feedback from everybody in the community. So once we put out these initial parameters, we're probably going to set up a call. Maybe we'll have some sort of feedback form, something like that, so people can basically let us know what they like, what they dislike about the initial setup that we came up with, and then we'll take all that into consideration and perhaps make changes. Now, there's no guarantee that we're going to implement suggestions that people have. At the end of the day, that's going to be like a decision for like our researchers and like our CEO and some other folks. But we do want to give that opportunity for people because at the end of the day, you guys are all the ones that are going to be running hardware and contributing, and so we want to make it as beneficial for you as possible. And the good thing about this is like, since everybody here is so early to the ecosystem, once we launch mainnet like in the first quarter of next year, I think you'll be in a really good position to capitalize on earning Aleo credits before hopefully things start to blow up. So I think having this insight and helping drive the direction in which we want to set up our initial parameters is going to be like a really interesting opportunity for everybody. So I just wanted to put that out there as well, since I brought it up, and I'm sure people have questions, but we will be discussing that more in depth in separate discussions, not necessarily on this. But and then somebody said, "Are you planning?" Oh yeah, okay, cool. They just responded to that question earlier. All right. So with that, I guess those are just some announcements. But yeah, I don't know if maybe for this discussion we want to kick off with anything in particular. I don't know if, since we were talking about use cases, maybe that's an interesting spot to maybe hone in on, or I'm not
Well,
sure,
I'd
Sam
like
or.
to I'd like to ask Errol if this kind of, when you blur your eyes when you're looking at what you're doing with this hangman thing, where you have this basically this hidden list, and you are checking certain guesses as to whether or not that is inside that list. Can you think of maybe game mechanics other than Hangman, maybe more like contemporary games where that same type of structure would be useful? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general idea here is that there's some knowledge that has to be committed to. At the start of the game, the person chooses their word, but we want to make sure that they can't change their word later. So they have to commit to it and publish it so that we can check later when they reveal their word that it is the one that they put in earlier. So it's kind of asymmetric knowledge. It's a very abstract way to think about it. I mean, the Dark Forest people talk about fog of war being somehow linked to this. I don't know exactly how you apply it in that case, but that's what we're trying to figure out along the way, right?
That's kind of what I was thinking was fog of war, because like in the fog of war example, your word is basically like the whole world, revealed and unrevealed. And then like your guess would be the space of that fog that you've cleared by visiting it and learning about the environment. Think.
Right. So I thought this as well. So I looked into Dark Forest and I went on their Discord and tried to ask a few people about how it actually worked, because there's like fog of war, and like bit by bit you start exploring where you want to, just one square at a time. And I asked them how this worked because I thought it might be. I was confused how you'd make it consistent among different people. If you're going to work out yourself, how do you ensure it's the same as what somebody else sees? And the response I got, which I believe is true, the community there, they said that actually it's not the case. It's actually a hash function. So in each square, you hash some coordinates, and then you'll see what's there. So everybody, it's deterministic. Whenever somebody hashes that area, they can see.
Right.
But then it turns out that somebody can just, with a lot of computing power, hash the entire map. I mean, it would take them a while, but they can hash the entire map and see it.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because that's kind of how they're doing it, and they've kind of like turned that into part of the game, where you're basically mining through the fog. By the way, for people who don't know what fog of war means, it's like, if you ever played a real-time strategy game like Age of Empires or StarCraft, fog of war is like it's like the area that you can't see, that you don't have vision on, and you kind of like try to, like when you first start StarCraft, for example, you only see like your base, and if you want to see what's going on the map, you have to like kind of send people around and explore. And you're like, when you're doing that, you're like pushing back the fog of war, and you're learning, and you're seeing what's going on. And that's what the Dark Forest people have done, where in order to learn stuff about your broader environment by exploring, you're having to like essentially mine, like this computationally intensive thing to see what's going on around you. And as Errol said, it's deterministic. That's the way in which you know that it's synchronized for everyone, and you're all in the same world. You're not kind of having all these weird like parallel worlds that are all different. It's deterministic, where it's kind of seeded. What the world is seeded from the very beginning, but because it's so computationally intensive to actually find these hashes for all these different areas, that's kind of where what the game is all about, is pushing that forward.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe another example. The thing about the Dark Forest, or I mean, you're thinking in StarCraft terms or something, is that it's a real-time strategy. So everybody's making moves whenever they want, and I think that's a bit more complicated. So one of the other examples they had, I've never played Magic: The Gathering. I didn't really know how it works, but the general theme of card games.
Shame on you.
Yeah, sorry. So everybody has some secret knowledge. They have their cards and their deck, and they need to commit to it. We need to make sure that they can't change their cards, but also to be able to make proofs that they can do certain things. And then I believe it's kind of a turn-based game, and this makes it is a bit clearer to see how it interacts with the chain, because somebody does their makes their move, they make a proof of it, and they chuck it on chain, and you kind of move forward in this fashion. So perhaps that's an easier starting place to think from.
Yeah, well, this is something I was talking to Howard about. There are like one of the biggest use cases for blockchain in gaming is for kind of verifiable random number generation, right? Where you want to make sure that if it's a casino app, for example, that the website you're using isn't just trolling you by fixing fixing the numbers and making sure you lose all your money. So that's one instance in which you want to make sure that a verifiable random number is a good thing. But we already kind of have applications for that. Not us, but like Chainlink, I think, were one of the first ones with their VRNG application. And there's a few of those out there already. But the thing about those the types of verifiable random number generation that we have now is that the number that's being generated is completely public, right? So you're able to produce this random number, this piece of RNG, and everyone is able to be convinced that yes, this is truly random, and no one was able to game it. But the number that was generated is completely public, right? And to my knowledge, there isn't a protocol out there that lets you, like for example, for that Magic the Gathering thing, right? Every person has their own deck of cards, right? And so you don't want the person to know what numbers you're rolling, because then they're knowing that's basically knowing what cards you're drawing. And so you'd want to be able to have that kind of thing, but in zero knowledge. And I believe, now that I'm thinking about it, it might even be slightly more complicated to do something like poker, where it's a shared deck, right? Where you're both able to be convinced that that deck is shuffled correctly, and that the cards that people have drawn from the deck, even though you don't know what other people's cards are, you know that the mechanism, the randomization mechanism that is distributing these cards is correct and not gamified. Yeah, I think that would be really good use case. Just if we could just figure out like how to get like a 52 card deck and a verifiable thing for that, so you could have people have multiple secret hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing up poker. I mean, I don't know why I didn't mention it as well, because I was trying to, before I was doing Hangman, I wanted to do poker or another card game like that. It turned out Hangman's a lot simpler, and it'll be more fun if, it's much less code, and it'll be more fun in the beginning because people can just play it with one other person. You don't need 5 or 6. But I was trying to work on the problem you just mentioned of you need, you have in a poker space, you have the house, the person who deals the card. We just place our trust in them. We see them with the cards. We can see that we're all choosing from the same deck. And actually trying to do that in a blockchain setting, of course, you can just have an online dealer, right? But ideally, we want just the people playing to somehow distribute that trust between them. And it's a very interesting problem. And I don't know if there are solutions yet. I think it was mentioned in this Dark Forest video where they talk about the other ideas, but I don't know how that would work.
Can you share this video that you keep referencing? Can you share it in the chat?
Yeah, give me 1 sec whilst I look for it.
Yeah, thanks. I'm yeah, man, I really would like to have a working poker implementation for final testnet. I think that would be really cool. Basically having people able to play poker on layer 1 with the testnet tokens, which as we've mentioned earlier, there is going to be like a redeemable value for them. So you're basically going to be playing poker with real value on chain. Yeah, I think that's super cool. And
yeah, the more games we can put there, the better. I mean, first, it's something to do, but second off, it's a great way to just see how things are working on chain from a practical perspective. I see it a bit of the internet. Like, I mean, everyone's using the internet, but most people don't know how the internet works. And when you learn a little bit, you're like, oh my God, cool. Yeah, exactly, because it doesn't matter. And this is where we want to go with ZK Snarks, particularly Aleo. Like, we don't want you to have to understand how they work or how it all fits together. We just want you to understand how to interact. But But if we're telling people, you can offload computation, it's kind of much more of a boring entry point when we have games that you can use instead.
Yeah, I think that's a good. And we were just talking about this in our education talks, right? We're trying to figure out what use cases is going to be the easiest to explain to a complete noob why we want zero knowledge at all. Yeah, and so I think if the application is something they understand already, like poker, then so much the better. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to, I really, really, really want to have poker working for incentivized testnet because I think it's important that we have at least one kind of like zero sum competitive application on chain where people are able to get tokens, right? Because that's what you want, right? That's what all this is all about. It's like the this is what all the DeFi stuff is about, right? And we could try to spin up some kind of toy, day trading simulator on chain, but like I just like how many people would find that entertaining versus playing Hold'em on chain. That just seems to be inherently more cool, more fun, and plus like everyone knows how to play it, and not everyone knows like trading strategies and all this weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when I was trying to get involved, like look into Ethereum a bit in the beginning, there were some tutorials and that, but it was like, go to SushiSwap or Uniswap and make a trade, and then I've got to put money in, and I've got to like pay $40 for a single trade and all this stuff, and
40.
yeah,
That's nothing these days.
yeah, it's ridiculous, right? I think lots of other people did similar things. They just want to see, what's all this talk about Ethereum and that, or blockchain in general. And DeFi is great, obviously, but it's kind of a very specific area. And we know that blockchain can be used for various different things, but we only have proof of concepts that more geeky, techie people look at right now. We don't have larger applications that people can just interact with, and a lot more fun and great way to get involved. If a normal person goes and looks at Ethereum, they just mostly like, yeah, so what? Like, they can buy NFTs now, but even that's still got some ways to go.
Yeah, dude. And I don't know if we want to turn this into an NFT room, but yeah, there's a lot of problems going on with NFTs right now.
What's the key problem?
The key problem is that 99.9% of all NFTs that are creating now have absolutely zero value and are just like manic artists that like are seeing all these people getting really, really rich and are like, oh my god, I want to get rich by making a JPEG.
Okay, so could you resolve any of those? Well, I don't know if you could really resolve that. Is that like a problem that's solvable from like a technology perspective, or that's more
No,
just like a social thing?
well,
Social, cultural.
yeah, certain amounts of it are solvable by tech in that I think that one of the main pieces of value to this kind of artist made NFT is going to be the social factor, where basically you're not buying a piece of art in the way that you would normally think about it. What you're buying is more like an autograph or a selfie. It's like this artist is only making one of these NFTs, and if you buy that, then you're basically buying like a piece of social clout that it's attached to this artist. And
But why do you need it to be an NFT for that? That's what I don't understand.
well, I mean, the reason why you want an NFT is that the whole thing is settled. It is settled and stored in a censorship-resistant. It's on a blockchain, right? It's the same way that we like blockchains for moving money around and storing money. We like blockchains for moving and storing digital assets as well.
So, okay, so my question
Yep.
would be in that case, is there anything unique about issuing an NFT on like Aleo's blockchain in the future, for example? Would there be some
Is there any?
unique aspect that would make it different or desirable to hold an NFT on the Aleo blockchain versus another?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not that much up on our NFT project. I haven't spent that much time working with those guys. But I mean, you're always going to get value when you're throwing zero knowledge at things.
That's just such a vague answer, though, right? Like, what does that
Well, I
actually mean,
know.
though? Like, what does a
Well,
zero knowledge NFT mean,
I
though?
well,
Like,
We have
here-
roll-ups, right?
Yeah, so let me give you an example. So like going back to what I was saying, where I think the tech can actually make NFTs less dumb, is because I think that one of the actual pieces of value that is going to stick around with NFTs is the social connection. But but the reason why that kind of sucks right now is there isn't identity on blockchain currently sucks very bad. And if you want to have that kind of social connection to the artist, you need to have this kind of identity space where right now the main way that you're able to prove that this thing you're holding actually was created by an artist and get that social clout is it's through all of these kind of like siloed centralized platforms like Nifty Gateway. OpenSea is like kind of like the biggest semi-decentralized, like open platform where all these artists have their kind of established identities. But even then, the way that an artist's NFT address, or excuse me, an artist's OpenSea address is actually linked to their identity is really messy. Basically, if they want to verify, the best way to do it is to like have it on their Twitter or something weird like that. Yeah, it's just the identity is very very weak and sloppy, and there's all of these different kind of identities scattered all over all of these individual platforms. So it just makes the whole it makes the whole idea of these things as being like a signature or an autograph or a selfie with an artist just not as good as it could be if there was kind of a really good identity scheme that worked on all of these. And as I've said before in some of these calls, I don't think we can have a good decentralized identity system unless it uses zero knowledge. So that's the long answer is to why I think that maybe our Aleo offering for NFTs might technologically be superior. But I believe that in the short term at least, we're more focused on scalability. And using snarks more for kind of like their roll-up capacity and less so for their programmable privacy or whatever.
Yeah, to add to that, maybe as well, we can be using our NFTs in ZK gaming much more effectively than you could do on Ethereum because of basically gas costs and all this other stuff. So there's another element of things that's possible with our NFTs compared to others, aside from the fact it's actually affordable to transfer them. And then ours is also private by default, so you don't have to show that you own an NFT unless you want to. Whereas Ethereum, I assume, is visible to everybody.
oh wait, can we actually
Yeah, it is,
expand on
and that
that?
can actually be a
Because
bit of a problem. I've told, I can't remember if this is internal or external, but there's a huge problem right now with like big name NFT collectors who like the NFT whales, and they're basically the ones that are like driving the NFT markets. And last I checked, for all of these places where you can like display your NFTs, if someone just sends an NFT to your wallet, you can't, like, that just goes on your gallery, and there's nothing you could do about it. And so these whales are constantly having to like delete or like send all these NFTs to a burn address. People keep sending them, as like a troll where they're just trying to mess with the person, or like they're basically trying to like advertise, right? Like imagine if you could just like hang your painting in the Louvre, and like there was nothing they could do about it. Like that's a lot of people were doing. So I could see that being like something that people would like. Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of interesting, actually. I was gonna say, so that means somebody could like create some really graphically inappropriate NFT and just like
Yes.
send it to somebody and like have it on
Yeah.
there. Okay, that's
And
actually kind of screwed up.
this is horrible. But it was so bad a problem that I was talking with some of these whales and joking about like what I'm waiting for is for someone to create like ransomware NFTs where it's like
Oh my
they
god,
they
dude.
they send an NFT to your wallet and it's like a picture of like a kitten being held like over like a blender or something, and it's like you need to send a certain amount of ETH to the address, otherwise, you know, the kitten's going to get it, and stuff like this. And we were looking through some of the NFT protocols, and we were realizing that it actually could be done. You actually can create unsendable NFTs, which is crazy. So it was pretty technologically advanced to be able to do this. And as far as I know, none of these kind of like scammers or spammers rather have really figured out how to do this. But with certain, I think it was 1155. With certain NFT standards, it is actually possible to make an NFT where it's unsendable. Once you send it to an address, that person can't burn it, can't get rid of it on you know, based on some condition that you would be able to set, which would basically be what this is. Or or even worse, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie It Follows, where basically it's like that, where you get this NFT, and the only way you can prevent something bad from happening is by sending it to someone else. And
Yeah,
then
that's
yeah,
quite funny.
you would be able to like skim like money off of every transaction with like the royalty splits that these NFTs let you to put. I don't know. It's stuff like that. Look, it's one of those things like Murphy's Law. Uh, Anything that can happen will happen. Someone will eventually do this to a certain extent, and it will be a problem. And then, yeah, people are gonna see like, oh, how do we stop this? And as with most problems along these lines, just add ZK.
Interesting. So the other thing I was gonna, I think I'm getting who's raising his hand. Light him up. But the other thing I was gonna say is, can we like cover the gasless fees aspect of like Aleo? I think that might be something interesting for people to hear about if either of you know more about it. Because yeah, I know Errol, you were kind of mentioning how like yeah, on the NFT question, just the fees in general could be a benefit of like using Aleo over something else.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the gas cost and all this stuff on Ethereum. Yeah, kind of too much. I don't know the details of the gas costs on Aleo, but we can already speculate a bunch because of our Zexy model, where you don't put the whole computation on chain. You do the computation off chain. You make a proof of it, and then you put the proof on chain. The proof is logarithmically smaller than the whole computation, so the amount of data you have to put on chain is a small fraction of the whole chain. So by that already, even if it was the same as Ethereum, it would already be a fraction of the gas cost there. But we also have some more, like our roll-up's going to contribute to it even more as well. So I don't know the exact answer, but it's clear from the beginning that it's going to be much cheaper than Ethereum and others.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's not as if we don't have transaction fees. Like you still will you know, need to pay a small amount just to put data on the chain, and like that's important. And the blockchain wouldn't be secure and Sybil resistant if that wasn't the case. But it's that the actual like you're not paying for, you're barely paying at all for extra computation, because as Errol said, all that kind of stuff happens on chain, whereas in Ethereum you have to pay for every little bit of computation that your smart contract requires, because it's all executed on chain by all the miners.
right. Cool. So I see Evgeny and Iggy came on the stage. If one of you want to say anything, feel free.
Yeah,
Contribute
hello,
to the
guys.
discussion.
I
Hi.
just wanted to ask Sam to get into details why ZK is the only way to improve the identity check on the blockchain, and what is the difference, the crucial difference, and why the current identifications fail.
Right. Sure. So I mean, if you think about what you want identity to be, you know, identity is one of those things where privacy is really important, because yeah, what you want identity to be, just in general, is you want to be able to prove certain things about yourself. But at the same time, you also don't want all of the information about yourself to be public, right? And so you take those two things, and that's what zero knowledge is all about solving. It's about, I have some private data, I want to create some proofs about that data. Yeah, that's why zero knowledge, I think, is ID needs ZK, and people are slowly realizing this, and yeah, I have zero doubt that within a certain amount of time, who knows how long that is, it's just going to be a standard. In the same way that like end-to-end encryption is just generally a generally agreed standard for communications, I think zero knowledge encryption is just going to be a generally agreed standard for all things related to identity. And as I think we've mentioned in other talks, even governments agree with us on this. The U.S. government has been recently been putting out some public research into the areas of zero knowledge for things like I don't even know. It's almost certainly about identity, simply because that's kind of the main killer app for ZK, really, when you get down to it.
Yeah, but if we think deeper, like what are the real or the most important, the most private data we have, like name, I don't know, date of birth, passport, and
Okay,
if so, like
yeah.
passport, how we verify it locally to like create a proof and then share this proof? Like, what's the mechanism behind it? Who will be the party which will say you that yes, your
You are a
private
person,
data,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, well, then now you're running into the Oracle problem, and there are people who are working on ways of doing that in a decentralized way. But my guess is for things like passports that it's going to stay this like the government is still going to be the Oracle in all these cases. They are the one that are going to be kind of stamping these things and providing the information. But the passport, the certificate that you have, will still be able to be this kind of like private document that you're able to create selective proofs about, right? You're going to be able to prove, yes, I am of age to enter this bar without revealing the rest of the passport. You're going to be able to prove, yes, my primary residence is within this district to vote in this particular writing for an election. You're going to be able to prove, yes, I have a valid driver's license without revealing anything else, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, zero knowledge doesn't fix the Oracle problem, but it does make much more useful oracles.
So like low level code, like in your example, low level, let's say transfer of information to the bar security will happen without revealing my data, just by like QR code, basically.
Something along those lines, and yeah, that will be kind of your and if it does work with QR codes, I guess this is interesting. I haven't thought about this before. If it's done via QR codes, because I kind of always assume this would just happen with a phone, but if it's done with QR codes, I guess what you would have to do is you would have to have all these individual proofs, right? You'd have which would be all these individual QR codes, and you'd have like your I am of legal drinking age proof, and that's one QR code you could show. Then you'd have your I am of, I have a valid driver's license proof, and that would be another little QR code. So yeah, if you wanted to do it that way without having it in a phone, you would like, I guess you would have like all these multiple little pieces of paper in your wallet that you'd pull out at individual times. That's interesting.
Because well, last year introduced us to COVID, and we had those QR codes, at least in our country. And even in the capital, Moscow, it was introduced in a weird way, and everyone could scan QR code, and I think with some manipulation end up with the JSON with all your data.
Nice. Yeah. Well. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that's
So,
not good.
oh, it isn't good, and I think that is a separate issue because again, like even if we have passports and driver's licenses and all these things that work under like solid zero knowledge principles, you're right. If the government is going to be the oracle that is kind of stamping all of these things, they are probably going to have a big database with all of this information that we want to be private in the first place. And yeah, the security of that database is going to be kind of on them. And if we wanted to improve upon that, that would mean that would basically come down to just basically data, like standards and practices of how that is done, right? So if what you would want to have happen is when you go to like get a driver's license or get a passport, the pipeline between that, when that information is collected and collected from you, verified by them, and put into the system, it's kind of that whole pipeline is fully encrypted, and it isn't stored in some of just like a plain text JSON on a server somewhere. Yeah, that is less than ideal.
Cool, thanks.
I mean, you can do these things without an entire proof system, well, like a more general proof system as well. You can just do them with accumulators where you'll have like a whitelist. You can, maybe it's a club and you've got a ticket for that night. Then they can make an accumulator that has all the people who will be coming that night, and then you have a very small proof that you are somebody on this list without showing that away. And it's a more direct, specific way to do the identity aspect of things without using a massive proof system. Because the normal proof system like Plonk or Marlin or Groth16 it's designed to be more general, which means it's a bit bulkier than something very specific, like a specific accumulator. And then no data is going to be shared. There's no JSON file with all your stuff. Your proof is just free group elements, and you can't work out anything from that.
I
All
actually
about accumulators. Oh, go ahead, Iggy.
yeah, I actually noticed that the proof system, if you want to put it on chain, you need to specify a birthday and a death day? And how does that work? Is it compulsory? Because I'm thinking of, like, for example, you create a game and the proof, if you didn't specify when it dies off, will it just like continuously be running? Or yeah, I'm just thinking about, is it efficient to set? I mean, sorry if I confuse all of you.
No, that's okay. So I think we're still working on this a little bit because we're updating our transaction model. But every record or transaction, I can't even remember which one of those two right now, needs both a birth predicate and a death predicate. And the death predicate just gives all the conditions for when the record can be used. I mean, I think leaving it empty, I don't know what that would do. I mean, it's always going to be on chain anyway. We're never going to remove it. But yeah, that's actually a very good question. I wonder if we should look into that a bit more. I don't know if you, Anthony, or Sam know a bit more about this specific part.
No, I've heard Howard talk about it. I actually, I'm not sure why we have that, and kind of what bounds are placed upon that. So, good question, Iggy. I guess we'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I don't think I have a solid answer either, but I think this is a good question to maybe forward over to some of our engineering folks and see if we can get an answer for.
What were some of the concerns, Iggy, that you had? Like, what? Yeah, like how could you see this being a pain in one way or another?
No, it's just that I feel like if you are building something on top of Aleo, you need to know this first. Like, yeah, it's kind of like a part when you're trying to build something else. You need to define all these variables, right?
Yeah, so we're of course trying to make this as simple as possible for all developers. One thing to note: these records that we have on chain, these are like the equivalent of coins in Bitcoin. And on Bitcoin, when you're using it, you'll have some software that is your wallet software, right? And it's keeping track of all your coins for you. We similarly will have another thing. I don't know exactly what it is called. It might be the Aleo SDK software development kit, and this will do the equivalent of the wallet. It'll be looking after all of your records and should be taking the details of this process mostly out of your hands and simplifying things. But as for developers, in terms of when they're writing programs, I think that's something we need to figure out, well, are working on a bit more. Because like I said at the beginning, our transaction model is being updated a little bit now, and this is how you put a proof or transaction on chain, and that should be finalized soon.
Oh, okay. Are we wait for the announcement then?
Yeah, I will. I will try to get an answer from that on that question, Iggy, right after this call. That's going. I could see how that's kind of weird. It's kind of like it's kind of like making an ID and you give your birthday, but you also have to give your death day. So it's like what?
Yeah. Yeah. Is it like default non-stop or default after a year or something like that? Because I'm thinking from a game, like if you're designing a game perspective, it's not really necessary for you to have like infinite proof. You can just do like only during that game period, then you can just close it off. But I'm not sure how does it work. It sounds like it's like a time lock or that sort of thing.
Yeah, that would be my assumption, is that for whatever reason it was decided that you need to have a time lock onto it somehow. I can only imagine it is for security, like the same reason why you'd want a time lock for anything like a swap or whatever. Yeah. Out of curiosity, is there a particular game that you have in mind that you've been thinking about, or just in general?
Yeah, I'm thinking of like building maybe I'm not sure about the CK hack thing because I was also enrolled into that thing. But I'm thinking of building a werewolf. Not sure have you guys heard of. Is Werewolves of the Miller of Hollows.
Did you say
Like that
werewolf?
kind of werewolf game, yeah, like the
Yeah,
card game.
nice.
So
Yes, Iggy,
uh,
that's amazing. This is exactly, yeah, this was kind of like the first game that I had in my mind for, like, what would be perfect? Werewolf. That's awesome.
yeah,
How does
I
this
also
game
feel
work?
like that is perfect game for
Mhm.
CK, and because like everyone need to be hidden during that period, so like the killing period, the killing time. So and like you can't reveal who is the witches or you can't reveal who is the wolf,
Yeah.
and there might be more than one wolf, and yeah, you can't kill the same person, or you can like depends on how you set it, you can make it more fancier with CK, I believe, because now yeah, with CK I'm not entirely sure, I haven't think of the detail, but yeah, that
That's
is
awesome,
something
Iggy.
that I
I'm
would like
gonna
to
I'm
Mm.
gonna send
see.
you I'm gonna send you my email. If you could shoot me an email, I'd actually like to talk to you more about this.
Great
Yeah.
game.
Would that be all right?
Yeah. No, you can contact me on Discord.
Okay, cool. Errol, Werewolf is
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever played.
I do know this game actually, but I know it by a different name. I can't even remember the name. I know it by, but you don't have a werewolf. You had like a murderer and a healer and a policeman, and
Yeah.
you can chuck in all other stuff.
Yeah, there's
That's really cool. But yeah, it requires multi parties and you need to host it somewhere else. And then draw a card and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's all kinds of kind of hidden role games along these lines. There's the Resistance. That's kind of one of the biggest ones. What else is there? I'm kind of a board game nerd. There was one recently I played that was really really good, where it was like a heist standoff, where the way that the game concludes is everyone is pointing like their fingers like pretend guns at everyone, and you're trying to figure out who's who. That one was pretty fun. Yeah, that's really cool, Iggy. Yeah, I'd love to follow up on you with you on this and talk more about it.
It's just an idea. Everyone can build it like together if you like to. Yeah.
That would be fun. I'd like to get involved as well. I'll follow up with Sam on that.
Yeah, that's why I have question about the death thing and the birth like parameters.
Yeah. Have you have any seems like you have a good intuition for ZK and games, Iggy. Did any other kind of ideas pop into your head other than Werewolf?
There's a lot of potential with CK, so Yeah, game is just nah. I never built a game before. That's why I really want to try.
Cool, very cool. Well, it looks like we only have a couple minutes here. Is there any last minute questions and or comments? I haven't checked the chat in a while.
I don't think there's anything in the chat, so I think we're good.
I think I was supposed to ask what educational content people would like to see. I mean, people can chuck this in Discord at any time, but we're working on some educational initiatives, and I think we might be trying to get out there a few articles on what ZK snarks are, or like what aspects of ZK snarks you should care about. You know, why they're useful and this kind of stuff. But it would be great if people have some ideas about other things they would like to learn about it. I believe last week in the ambassador program, Evgeny and other people were talking about lots of educational content specifically on ZK snark stuff, not blockchain in general, but the ZK aspect. But if people have some specific questions that come to mind when they think about this stuff, it would be really, really helpful if they could share them. And yeah, I don't have any other updates.
Cool. Well, yeah, if that's it, then I guess we can wrap up the call here. But thank you again for everybody joining today, and we look forward to having our next discussion. Like I said, so this will resume on Monday again at the regular time, and we will be trying to have it honed in on a more specific conversation. Maybe we'll have particular speakers from our team come and join. So watch out for that. And if you haven't submitted any ideas yet, feel free to do that in the type form that's pinned in the calls Q&A chat. It's the Zero Knowledge survey form. So yeah, thanks everyone, and looking forward to sharing some updates soon. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next week.
See you later.